Alright, well, the old double six is back for some install action. Now, as you can see in that first clip, the old idle's dropping down quite significantly when the fans kick on and the AC's on. And as you can see, my voltage is dropping down pretty near almost nearly 2 volts. So today, we're going to solve that with an idle up solenoid from Edelbrock. Now, you can only use this kit if you have an Edelbrock carburetor. Part number is 8059. I will put a link in the description. That way, if you're interested, you can go check it out. Now, if you click on that link, make sure you're sitting down and be prepared, because the solenoid itself costs $245. Uh-oh. Brad. Uh-oh, well, I think we just lost Brad. Brad, you alright? Yeah, he's starting to come to. He just passed out. Yeah, that thing will suck the wind out of you when you buy it. I can guarantee you that. So sit down when you pay for it. Last year, I did a vintage air install on the old 66 C10. So if you're a C10 guy with this generation of truck, there will be a 3-part series of videos. Go check it out. You don't even have to be a C10 guy. If you just want to check it out, go check it out. 3-part series of videos on the old vintage air installs. And I've had my trials and tribulations with it. I'll get into that later. Today, we're going to be solving that idle drop with this. Now, if you have a Holly or some other type of carburetor, I think they make kits for Hollies, so you'll have to go find a video that's hopefully made for that. This is for Edelbrock people only. It does not apply to Chevy. It can be any Edelbrock carburetor on top of any engine that's out there on the street. Alright, without further delay, let me let the engine cool down just a skeet taste, and then we'll sneak that air cleaner off and see what we got to do. Well, there ain't a whole lot in the kit. Just your bracket, solenoid, and some type of hardware. I'll tell you what, there ain't a whole lot here for $245. But unfortunately, you're paying for that. And it's made in USA, so you're paying for that as well. Let's look in the instructions here. Alright, looks like there's going to be a whole lot of reading, which I don't like doing, so we don't need that. Now, as far as the install goes on the solenoid bracket, should be pretty straightforward. Now, the most challenging part is going to be wiring it. Where's your compressor located? Is it on the passenger side? Is it on the driver's side? Is it up? You know, where's it going to be located? Because more than likely when you wire it, you're going to have to splice off and tap into the wire that gets the 12 volts for the clutch on your compressor. That'll send voltage to the old solenoid, and the solenoid will boop, kick out and idle up your engine. That way your battery voltage don't go down to 12.5 like mine did in the beginning of this video. So let me pick the instructions up off the flow, spend 2, maybe 300 hours reading them. Once I know what I'm doing, we'll start the install. So now that I read this, we can install this. Now, you can't put the bracket on the carburetor first and then do the solenoid, but it's going to be a little easier for me to show it this way, and then I can install this to the carburetor. This will go just like this on your front driver stud, and it does provide a longer stud. However, in my particular situation, I got a 1-inch spacer, so that is too small. But I did check fitment, and I do have enough meat on the threads to bolt this down. So the bracket faces like this. Install the solenoid this way. Kind of up to you on how you want to position the terminal. Locking tabs face down towards the bracket. And I notice mine's a little on the narrow side, so I may have to tweak it a little bit. And then you install the stud. Or I mean the nut. Can't bring that down just a bit. You might be running in the same situation I am. bend that in a little bit more. And once you get this locked down, this is an 1¼ inch nut. Get it tightened, but they do say do not over tighten it, because I mean it's kind of a stamped steel nut, so don't get too crazy with it. All your adjustments through this, which is a 1/2 inch size, so use a wrench to adjust it if you need to idle it up or down. So let me take this to the vise, tighten this nut. We'll go ahead and use these tabs and lock it in place. That's what they're for, to keep the nut from backing out. And then once that's done, then we'll take this and install it to the carburetor. Uh-oh, I already see one problem for myself. Yep, I'm hitting this carburetor deal. See what I'm running into right there? I'm gonna have to address that. I could probably notch this bracket just to sneak it over a skeet taste, but I don't need all this thread, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and cut that off, and hopefully that'll solve my problem. Might be able to bend it as well. Let me figure that out on my end, and once I do, we can finish the install. Alright, well, solenoid and bracket are officially installed, nice and tight. As you can see, I cut my throttle rod here. Depending upon your application, you may have to make some minor modifications like I did. Not that big a deal. The only thing I notice is going to be really hard to access now is your idle screw. I think it's pretty close to where it needs to be. I may have to tweak it one way or the other. You can do that by just removing that, adjusting it, and then putting it back on. Or you can get a 1/4 inch wrench in there, because that's the size of this head, and adjust it that way. The only other thing that might need an adjustment is the solenoid once we get everything wired up and test it out. But for now, she's installed. So now that we got the solenoid bracket installed, there's only one thing left to do, and that's wire it up. Essentially it's only one wire, but how am I going to route it? How are you going to route it? That's up to us, right? I'm probably going to go across the intake somehow, go down, and then figure out how I'm going to splice into the compressor wire. You do how you want to do it. I'm going to do it my way. I'll show how I did it, and then after that's all said and done, I got all the wiring finalized. Then we can officially fire this thing up, test it out, and adjust the solenoid as needed. And also as needed, I'm going to give y'all about 3 seconds of mug time. Yes. Back to work. Hey guys, I hope everyone's enjoying the video. But believe it or not, I actually had this video uploaded last week, but took it down the following day because I thought I made a mistake on the wiring. Now, according to the Edelbrock instructions, they tell you to wire it up to a 12-volt power supply coming from your AC, which I did originally, as you'll see later on in this video. But the solenoid should stay engaged until you turn the AC off, and that's where I thought I made the mistake. Because every time, as you'll see later in the video, the compressor cycled off, the solenoid lost the 12 volts. And then when the compressor cycled back on, it got its 12 volts again, but you'd have to blip the throttle for the idle to go back up. Kind of tedious. So I spent all day yesterday, or at least most of the day, trying to find that 12-volt power supply coming from my vintage air. I had the glove box out and everything. Probing, back probing, doing everything I could to find that 12 volts. When the AC's on, and that 12 volts goes away when the AC's off. Could not find it. Wipe away frustration today, went to O'Reilly's, bought a toggle switch, and now the solenoid works when I want it to work. I flick the switch and boop, solenoid kicks out, idling up the engine. Once I blip the throttle, it stays idled up until I cycle that switch off. Basically finished routing the wire along the passenger valve cover, behind the engine, through the firewall and into the inside the cab. Now, in your particular application, you might be able to find that 12 volts in your, maybe you have a different type of AC system, or maybe you have the factory AC system. If you can find that 12 volt power supply from your AC, when you turn it on, and that stays on until you turn it off, then by all means, that's the wire to splice into to make the solenoid work the way Edelbrock intended. I hope this portion was helpful. That way it gives you several alternatives to try to troubleshoot your wiring. That way you can wire it up to suit your needs. Alright guys, hope this was helpful. Back to the original portion of the video. Install is complete. All the wiring is done. I will show you in depth on how I routed it and wired it, and all the little subtle tricks I used to make it look a little nicer than you would if you just took a wire and just laid it across everything with just some crappy zip ties. A little attention to detail goes a long way. Alright, enough of the mug. Let's zoom over here and see what I did. So first things first, here at the solenoid, we got it wired up. Now I will say, on the actual terminal blade itself, there's a little punched square and a little tab that sticks down. I don't know why, because it made it hard to plug in, and they don't provide a female terminal, so I just kind of flatten that up with a needle nose, and she's got a little tension, and she's also relatively easy to remove. And I routed it behind the old stat housing there. Use these big zip ties, and I just kind of tuck the square down, makes it look a little bit cleaner. That way when you look up top, you just see two black bands. Went ahead and routed it under the compressor to right here, and I used since the factory was a rounded male deal on the compressor, and then the factory harness that they provide is a female in the Vintage Air kit. I had some of these, made that install a little easier. I'll have to plug that up here in a minute when I ain't holding the camera. But you can do whatever you want to do. You can do you know, those kind of terminals however you want to do that there. Try to make it as clean as possible. Now let me show you this wire loom I used. So the wire loom stuff I'm using is a Summit Racing brand, and they call it woven fabric wire wrap. This is 8 inch by 20 feet. They make 1/4 inch, I think 3/8, 1/2 inch, I think all the way up to 1 inch. But to me, it just looks a whole lot better than that plastic wire conduit you see at part stores, and obviously other wiring harnesses. A lot of people use that stuff. To me, this just looks a whole lot better and cleaner, and it's not too bad in price. So if you're interested, I will put a link in the description for this particular part number, or you can just look it up and get the different sizes they have. Now, as far as that male terminal, here's another one right here. And what I like to do, see that blue plastic piece, I like to pull those off, get rid of them, get your wire, slide the heat shrink over the wire, crimp that on there, and then heat shrink it over all this, and you get you a nice clean finished wire like this piece right here. Even though the terminal's different, you get the idea. That looks so much better than seeing this kind of stuff here just hanging out on the end. Attention to detail, that's how I like to say, goes a long way if you're wanting a nice clean install. Alright, I think the install is complete, so there's only one thing left to do. We need to fire up the old engine, turn the AC on, fans on, and all that stuff, and start adjusting that idle up solenoid as needed. 800 RPM at idle when it's warmed up. Wait for the AC. What is that, about 1100 RPM? Overall, not too bad. I guess that would be about my only complaint, would be you have to constantly tap your throttle to get it to idle back up. But I can tell you right now, that's going to be having to, having to turn the idle up, drive around town with it idling up high, and then, every time you shut it off, it's going to diesel. And so, yeah, it's a minor inconvenience, but at the end of the day, I can live with that. My right foot's already on the pedal anyways. Just give it a little tap. Yeah, you in business. I'm satisfied with that. I am satisfied with that. Shut her down. Well, overall, guys, really not that hard of an install. If it wasn't for me filming, I probably would have had this done in an hour, hour and a half. It really doesn't take that long. Even with the trimming of the throttle rod I had to do, and just kind of fine-tuning my wiring. I knew the wiring was going to be the most time-consuming part, even though that wasn't too bad. I mean, it kind of sticks out, but it's not too bad. I don't know, depending upon your air cleaner, it probably won't interfere with any of that stuff. So I think you should be good. But overall, I am satisfied. But I ain't done with this truck. Like I said at the beginning of the video, last year I had a few trials and tribulations with the old Vintage Air on cooling issues, especially tooling down the highway. Plus, I want to change a few things up that's going to make this hopefully operate a little bit more friendly. I want this truck, when I get in it, it's like a normal car almost. I mean, it is carbureted, but you get in it, you turn the key on, you turn the AC on, you got your idle up solenoid, you got electric fans set to where they need to be set. I got this adjustable deal here. So this is an adjustable temperature fan relay kit that I got from Painless last year, and it's got the temperature probe that pushes in the radiator, and I also got an extra relay kit that piggybacks off of it, as I am running dual electric fans from Durali. Now, I have no complaints. This thing works great. It's adjustable to suit your needs. But with the AC on, especially in the summertime, I want the fans running all the time. So I have to turn this up for it to do that. And then once it cools down, the winter months or whatever, then I have to readjust this. So it's slightly cumbersome, and I want something a little bit more user-friendly. So in the next video, I'm going to be upgrading to a dual electric fan kit from Painless as well. But this one has AC override, and it also has a temperature sending unit. It's preset to, I believe, 185 on, 175 off, if I'm not mistaken. And so on the next video, I'm going to be installing that. There's a couple other things I want to take care of, and we'll leave that as a mystery. And then there's one or two things I'm going to do inside the cab to hopefully better improve the cooling function of the Vintage Air. Like I said earlier, been having some trials and tribulations and some cooling issues, so I'm trying to see if I can fix that this year. But today, none of that. This is just basically an Edelbrock idle up solenoid. Pretty straightforward. You got Edelbrock carburetor, this thing's going to work great. I'm happy with it. The only complaint I have really is that it is expensive. And I guess really honestly, the constantly having to hit the throttle every time it cycles off and then back on, that could be a little bit annoying, but at the end of the day, it beats turning up the idle and leaving it turned up with a screwdriver and then turning it back down and going through all that stuff. Well guys, that pretty much wraps this video up. If you're the first time watching, you're new to the channel, I got another truck, 76 Chevy Love. I'm in the process of doing the 350 swap. Would have been working on that truck today, but with the rain, I decided to go ahead and install that idle up solenoid. I thought it'd be pretty quick and easy. I also got the 66 C10. I got stuff I'm going to be doing to it as well this year in 2024. So go ahead and click that subscribe button. Go ahead and hit that notification bell. That way, when I drop a video, you know it's mug time. Yeah. Alright guys, well I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was informative. And if you have any questions, comments, please leave them. I'll be happy to help as best I can. Alright guys, like I always say, until then, thanks for watching.